What's up, YouTube? My name is Arthur Robinson Jr. I am the creator and host of PowerfulInterviews.com. I am a partner of NationalDiversified.com. I want to welcome each and every one of you to this phenomenal video. In this interview, you're going to experience life-changing information that you will not find anywhere else. I have secured an incredible interview with a great friend of mine. She is a successful businesswoman, the multi-millionaire. Her name is Wendy Day. Wendy Day specializes in the music business, and she helped a lot of A-list artists like Baby. He is the founder of Cash Money Records. She also helped Eminem and Master P of No Limit Records, and much, much more. My great friend Wendy Day, she is the best-selling author of her phenomenal book, which is called How to Get a Record Deal, The Knowledge to Succeed. In this interview, you're going to hear exclusively how Wendy Day, she breaks down layman's terms about A-list artists should never do 360 deals. Also in this interview, Wendy Day, she also breaks down layman's terms how she put together a $30 million deal back in 1989 for Cash Money Records. And Cash Money Records, the founder is Baby, Lil Wayne, and Juvenile. Also in this interview, Wendy Day, she breaks down layman's terms about how she helped Eminem earlier in his career. Also in this interview, Wendy Day, she breaks down layman's terms on how she helped Master P from No Limit Records, and much, much more. So remember, this is not BS information. The right information will change your current situation. Wealthy people, they take advice from other wealthy people, and unfortunately, broke people, they take advice from broke people. So right about now, go get your pen and your pad, sit back and relax, and write down some notes. In this interview that I'm going to reveal to each and every one of you with my great friend, successful businesswoman. She specializes in the music industry. Her name is Wendy Day. This interview, it will change your life. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and turn your notifications on. That way you be well informed when I publish more successful audio interviews. So, check it out.
Without further ado, I'd like to welcome the one, the only, the beautiful Wendy Day to the show.
Hi, guys. Wow, Arthur, I hope I can live up to that introduction. That was awesome.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Wendy, for taking time out of your busy schedule to educate me and the listeners worldwide about the music industry and about creating wealth. I gladly appreciate it.
I'm so happy to do it. I'm so happy to be here.
To everyone that's listening on the show, I highly recommend go and get your pen and your pad right now. My great friend Wendy Day is going to break down layman's terms about the secrets to the music business. Is that correct, Wendy?
Absolutely. Yep.
Now, what I'd like to know, and can you explain to the listeners in layman's terms, who is the beautiful Wendy Day? How long you been in your powerful industry, and what is your expertise?
Let's see. I started in 1992 in the music business. I came to it as a fan, Arthur. Rap music is the music that speaks to me. I love the energy. I love the passion. I really love everything about it, the storytelling aspect, the flow. I love lyrics. I love melodical beats. I'm in my 25th year, and I'm just really excited to not only be working with people that I respect, but to be making money for a living in a way that I really love. Like, I'm really passionate about what I do. So I'm really, really, really fortunate that I get to do this for a living.
So basically, you turn your passion and turn them into profits.
Yeah, basically. Absolutely.
Now, Wendy, you are very, very knowledgeable about the music business. Can you explain to the listeners what is the best advice that you have ever received?
The best advice? Wow, what a great question. I would have to say the best advice that I ever received was probably the second or third year of my career in the music business, and one of my peers, one of my friends, saw that I was kind of all over the place and I was trying to do too much at once. I was trying to be all things to all people. And he pulled me aside and said, you know, I love what you're doing. I think it's amazing, but like you're all over the place. I don't really understand what it is that you do or what you're accomplishing because you're doing so many different things. Wouldn't you be more effective if you focused a little bit and started like doing just one thing and one thing really well? Like instead of being a shotgun, be a sniper. And that's such valuable advice. It was Harry Allen from the Public Enemy camp that schooled me on that. And it was so helpful because at the time I was doing activist work in the black community. I was helping rap artists. I was interested in cooking and sharing my knowledge in the culinary arts. Like I was doing so many different things, and that advice was so valuable to me. And literally, like the minute he gave me that advice, I restructured my life and said, I'm going to just on Rap Coalition and helping artists. And that advice turned out to be extremely beneficial to me. Another piece of advice that somebody gave me around the same time was, you know, make sure, it's great, Wendy, that you have a not-for-profit organization, but make sure that you've got enough money to sustain, because the last thing you want to have happen is you run out of money and you're homeless and you can't help anybody. And that advice enabled me to accept the fact that, you know, it's okay to make money as a not-for-profit. You just have to really be able to help more people and to sustain. And what I did from that advice was I went and found another way to make income so that I wasn't dependent upon my not-for-profit to support me. Because so many nonprofits, the folks that run them, can't really afford to live well. And I wanted to live well as help people. And that enabled me to start the for-profit side of my company, which is helping artists to get into really good deals and helping them start their own record label.
Wendy, explain to the listeners, now I know that you basically put together a $30 million deal for Cash Money Records. For those particular artists at that time, were you dealing with Baby, Lil Wayne, Juvenile, and Manny Fresh? And how did that deal all come together from your knowledge?
Yes, at the time when I found Cash Money in New Orleans, their circle was Juvenile, BG, Lil Wayne, Turk, the Hot Boys, which was, you know, a group of all of the artists together, and of course, super producer Manny Fresh. And what I did was I helped structure and organize their company so that they would be more attractive to a major label. And at the time, you know, they had put out 31 releases over a 6-year period.
Wow.
I didn't start Cash Money. I found them in their 6th year of existence, and they were just doing really well independently. And the most amount of CDs, because, you know, back then it was CDs that were selling, the most amount of CDs they had ever sold was 25,000, and that was BG, Copper City, and the Ghetto.
Wow.
And the reason they had sold only 25,000 was because they were only working their projects for like 6 weeks at a time, and then they would move on to the next release. And so what I did was I came in and showed them how to work their project a little bit longer, as well as expand their market base, their target market, beyond just Louisiana and Texas, where they were selling music at the time. So when we put out Big Timers, which was the first release that I helped them put out, we sold 75,000 CDs within, a pretty short period of time, and that's really what started the bidding war with the major labels, was the fact that they went from selling 25,000 CDs to 75,000 CDs in a pretty short amount of time.
So Cash Money, the whole entire group, they was already creating a buzz before you formulated a relationship with them.
Yes, their buzz was in Louisiana and Texas when I first met them.
Wow. Now, Wendy, let's break down layman's terms about the music business. It is a business, and I always say out of 100% is 90% business and 10% entertainment. Can you explain to the listeners from your own experience, what mistakes are you seeing that music artists are making in regards to they are really getting the rights to keeping most of their profit?
Right. The two biggest mistakes that I see most artists make, and it's a very large percentage of artists who still make these mistakes, which is kind of surprising to me, because there's so much information out there today that can help an artist succeed. But the two biggest mistakes that I see are artists not studying the industry before they jump in with both feet, meaning they don't find out, how to get a record deal, what's a publishing deal, how does touring work, how do I assemble a team, what does a manager do, what does an entertainment attorney do, what does cross-collateralization mean? There's many different things that an artist needs to know and understand in order to succeed in the music business, and so many artists just don't take the time to learn. They just want to rap, and they just want to tour, and they just want to have, people screaming their names and idolizing them. And then the second mistake that I see many, many, many artists make is they don't hire professionals as part of their team. They hire their cousin or their boy or their neighbor down the street or somebody who approaches them at an open mic where they're attending and says, oh, I'm a manager, I can manage your career. And they end up getting in bed with people that can't really help them and can't really move their career forward.
So it's good to connect with professionals that can get the job done.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. It's sort of like, if you've got a heart problem, you're gonna want to not only have a doctor, but you're gonna want to have a cardiologist, somebody who specializes in repairing your heart problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just going to go to the guy down the street and say, hey, fix my heart. I'm being facetious, but you get my point. There's
That's
so
right.
many artists out here that don't realize that this is a business, and you should really, if you're going to work with somebody, you should really work with somebody that's already experienced success and has a track record. You shouldn't just jump in with somebody that doesn't really know what they're doing, especially if you don't know what you're doing. It's a recipe for disaster.
Wow. So once people like you, respect you, and trust you, that's when their minds are made up and they want to invest in you because you are the brand?
Yes, I think if I'm understanding what you're asking, yes. It goes so much deeper than trust, though. I mean, trust is definitely an important factor in the music industry because the music industry can be very treacherous. But in addition to trust, people have to work with people that have already succeeded and have a track record of success. Did I answer what you were asking, or did I kind of go left with that one?
No, you definitely answered it. You definitely answered it.
But that wasn't too clear. Good.
Now, Wendy, I know you work with Eminem, and I know you work with Master P. Can you explain to the listeners what was your role in regards to getting their name out there in a major way?
They were actually two very different scenarios. Master P, when I worked with him, he was working with a guy named Tobin Coxton, and Tobin was running No Limit at the time. This was in the early 90s, and they had been offered a deal at Priority, and the deal was being negotiated by the manager of EA Ski, and forgive me, I don't remember his full name. I remember his name was John, but I can't remember his last name. But they were very nervous because EA Ski already had a deal with Priority, and they were very nervous that somebody was negotiating a deal for them that was already on the inside. They just didn't know if the deal being offered was fair, or if it was something that, you know, the manager was leveraging in order to get his artist in a better position, meaning EA Ski. So they reached out to me, and I got to be part of the team that negotiated that deal. And it turned out that they did do their best. They were trustworthy. But of course, you know, the Master P's team, they weren't sure. They were a little bit uncomfortable because there was a bit of a conflict of interest on that side. The great thing about the Master P deal was that it was an 80-20 split. He received a $600,000 advance. Wow. And it was for Master P, Mia X, and a group called TRU, which consisted of C Murder, who went on to do some solo releases through No Limit. With Eminem, I was speaking on a panel in Detroit at a music convention. I think it was called the Music Mecca. And when I came outside from that event, I saw that there was a cipher going on, and I had driven to Detroit. I was in Chicago at the time working with Twista and Do or Die, and I had driven to Detroit with a rapper called Rhymefest. Rhymefest is actually the guy who wrote Jesus Walks for Kanye.
Oh, wow.
But I had driven to Detroit with Rhymefest, who was a rapper, so when he saw that there was a cipher going on, you know, he jumped in with both feet. And I stood outside and you know, mingled with people for a while. I had already spoken on the panel, so people were asking me questions about some of the topics that I had discussed. And I really, you know, I was hungry. We had driven from Chicago early that morning, and we hadn't eaten because we were a little bit late. We had forgotten about the time change between Detroit and Chicago, so we didn't really have time to stop. And I had, you know, come into the event, and my panel started right as I got there. So I was hungry. I hadn't eaten since the night before. And this is late in the afternoon by now. You know, this is almost dinner time. So I wanted to go get something to eat, and Rhymefest and I were going to go to Denny's down the road. And he was in the cipher, and I kept, you know, saying to him, come on, let's go. I'm hungry. And finally he broke away from the cipher, and this white kid came running up to me as I was getting in the car, and he handed me his demo tape, and it was a cassette tape, you know, because back then they were cassette tapes. And I got in the car, and I tossed the cassette on the floor in front of Rhymefest. I was driving, he was in the passenger seat, and he just looked at me. And you know how, like, when you're driving, you can feel like the passenger just staring at you.
You feel that energy.
Yeah. So I looked over and I said, you know, why? And I knew what he was going to say, because I was wrong in throwing that tape on the ground. I should have popped it into the tape deck. And he said to me, man, that's really messed up. Like, that kid just gave you his demo and you threw it on the floor. I'm like, dude, I just want to get to Denny's. I'll listen to it later. We can listen to it on our way back to Chicago. And he said, man, he spent hours in the studio, and I was just rapping with him like he's really talented. And, you know, I'm like, okay, you know, peer pressure. Peer pressure made me listen to the demo tape because in my mind, you know, back at that point in time, there weren't really any great white rappers. The best rapper that was white that we had was, you know, Search from Third Base, which had been a decade earlier. At that point, he was kind of considered old school.
Mm-hmm.
And we had just gone through, in the industry, we had just gone through this this time period where, you know, Milli Vanilli got stripped of their Grammys, and Vanilla Ice was exposed for being a fraud. So there was this time where authenticity really mattered, and white rappers were not seen as authentic, whether they were talented or not, unfortunately. And it was just a very weird time in the music business. So I didn't listen to his tape, not because I didn't think he would have been talented, but because I didn't see a lane for him in the music business where I could be of help. So, of course, peer pressure made me listen to his demo tape.
Mm-hmm.
It was amazing, Arthur. Like, it was beyond amazing. His demo tape, which, you know, it turned out to be, you know, the first album that he put out, you know, the whole Slim Shady, every song on the demo was on the Slim, well, not every, but almost every song was on his first release. So you guys already know how amazing that music was if you've heard Eminem's first album. So I made a U-turn, and I went back and I scooped him up and said, you know, get in, and took him to get something to eat. And on the way, you know, explained what publishing was, explained how record deals work. I went back to New York after that. You know, I went to Chicago first. I was in Chicago for like another week or so. I went back to New York, and I took his music to every label that existed at that time and tried to get people to listen to, you know, to what he had to offer. And it was just, you know, it kept coming back to the fact he's white, he's white, he's white. Like,
wow.
At that point in time, labels were terrified to sign a white rapper just because of how the fans had reacted to Vanilla Ice. You know, it was a very ugly time in the history of white rap, you know?
But Eminem was totally different from Vanilla Ice.
Way different because he was authentic. And the labels were afraid because of the backlash. They were just afraid that fans would not embrace him. And it was very hard to get him a record deal. I ended up having to do an event out in L.A. called Rap Olympics. And Rap Olympics was an event that showcased lyricism. And my goal was to just get as much coverage for Eminem, you know, and other artists. It wasn't just Eminem. It was, you know, lyrical artists in general. My goal was to get attention for them and get on like MTV News and BET News and in all of the rap music press like The Source and Rap Pages and Rap Sheet. Just get some exposure for Eminem and the rest of these lyrical guys to show the labels that there is love for authentic lyrics. And from him being at that event, he was able to get onto the Wake Up Show with Sway and Tech, and Dr. Dre was listening to the Wake Up Show, and he heard Eminem, and that was his introduction to Eminem. You know, I had sent his demo to Interscope twice and got rejected. So
wow.
I was very excited. When I heard that Dre was interested, I was really excited.
Wow. Now, did you and Eminem throughout the years, did y'all stay in contact with one another?
No, I don't stay in contact with the artists after I do deals for them. There's just, you know, there's just not really a reason for me to do that. Like, I'm not trying to be friends with rappers and superstars. I'm really just trying to help build their careers. And my preference for artists is when they're brand new. Like, I really like breaking artists. I really like building superstars from the ground up. Once they've become stars, it's not as fun to me because other stresses and other influences come into play, you know, with drugs, with money, with power, like all these different things start to change an artist once they have fame, and it's just not as fun for me anymore once they get to that level. So it's not that I have any beef with him. You know, I spoke to him in 2005. He asked me to help him with an artist that he was working with named Trick Trick, which I did. So it's not that there's any beef at all. It's just that, you know, we don't have anything in common once an artist gets to that level of superstardom.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
You have an impressive outside-the-box resume, and I know that you formulated a relationship and you actually put a deal together for David Banner. How did that all come about?
He was actually one of my favorite artists that I worked with because I just really genuinely liked him as a person. I still do. I don't mean to talk in the past tense, but the deal was in the past tense. You know, he's very intelligent. Not to say that all rappers aren't intelligent, because they are. They're all intelligent in their own way. But David Banner is a scholar. You know, David Banner is somebody who, when he decided to rap, he was in the midst of a master's degree in education. And he was very savvy about the struggle of people of color. And we had a lot in common. You know, I have a degree in African American studies from an Afrocentric point of view. I studied under Dr. Molefi Asante out of Temple University, and Banner has the same view of African American studies, you know, from the Afrocentric point of view. So we just had a lot in common, and the way that he approached me was he was in Baton Rouge, and he hitchhiked to New York, and he ended up on my doorstep. And to this day, I have no idea how he found out where I was or where I lived, because I had just moved.
Wow.
Right after the Cash Money deal. And I had moved into New York, and I was living like in temporary housing. In New York, the way that you find, or back then, the way that you found affordable apartments was you would sublet. And so your sublet could be for a year, it could be for 6 months, it could be for 3 months. And I happened to be in Tribeca in a sublet in a loft for 6 months. And he showed up on my doorstep. So it was really amazing that he found me, because that apartment that I was living in was not my mailing address. So to this day, I have no idea how he just showed up, but he did. You know, I opened the door, and he was wearing overalls and no shirt, and he obviously was not from New York. I think he even had a straw hat on. It was summertime. I let him in the apartment, and he was telling me about his group, Crooked Letters, and they were signed to Penalty Records through Tommy Boy, and they were very frustrated. And I had a really good relationship with Tom Silverman. So I met with Tom Silverman to find out, you know, what we would have to do to strengthen his project, and to get the staff excited about what they were working on. This was in 1998, and so we tried putting the guys out on promo tour. I actually went out with them, and I did a ton of work for them, basically for free, because I really believed in what they were talking about and the type of music they were making. Like, these guys were critically acclaimed. They got more press than any other unknown act from the South that I had seen. So I knew that they had a following. I knew that they were worthy of success. I was just frustrated because neither Penalty nor Tommy Boy really understood Southern music at that point in time, you know? And I guess I guess that's not their fault, Arthur, because they were based in New York and
Right.
they didn't really know what was going on, you know, in Mississippi. So I eventually got Penalty and Tommy Boy to release Crooked Letters and let them go. At that point in time, Kamikaze, who was the main rapper out of Crooked Letters, David Banner was the producer, Kamikaze was the rapper, and together they made a group called Crooked Letters. Kamikaze was very dejected and demotivated. You know, his goal was to get a record deal, and now he didn't have one, you know, so he felt like he was back where he started, but he had wasted, you know, 4 or 5 years of his life, and he was very frustrated. So he decided to go in a different direction, and David Banner decided to start rapping because he felt that although he knew he wasn't the best wordsmith in the world, he knew that he had concepts and ideas that he wanted to share with the world. So when I started shopping David Banner's deal, that was in 2003. It took from 1998 to 2003 for him to really develop into the artist that he had become and to build enough of a fan base and a track record on the street that he would be valuable to a major label. And we ended up doing the deal at Universal. Steve Rifkin is the person at Universal that had signed him. Steve Rifkin had just folded Loud Records, and if you're a hip-hop fan, you know how important Loud Records was to hip-hop.
Mm-hmm.
They had Wu-Tang Clan and Mobb Deep and Big Pun, and, you know, a ton of talent came out of Loud Records. So when Steve Rifkin wanted to sign Banner, we were very excited because it was really his entree into Southern rap, you know. And the deal that we got for him was amazing, not just financially, but because Banner had been through a bad situation, you know, prior to signing with Universal. When he was signed to Penalty and Tommy Boy, there was also a production company in the middle that just really had done nothing for him, but they were taking half of everything. So we broke that deal, and when he went to Universal, he was very gun-shy because of what his experience had been. So the one thing that he was adamant about was, you know, he didn't want to be in another situation where if the label didn't do what they were supposed to do, that he wouldn't be able to make money. So one of the things that I proposed to Universal, like I bid up the deal really high. I got it up over $1 million. I can't remember the exact figure, but it would have been somewhere like around 1.2 or 1.3 million. And once I got it to that level, I said to Rifkin, you know what, instead of this amount of money, Banner would rather have $800,000. And, of course, Rifkin looked at me like I was insane when I offered that. He's like, no, Wendy, you're negotiating backwards. You don't go backwards, you go forward. And I said to him, you know, what he'd really like to do is he would like to have the opportunity to put his own music out independently, not through one of your competitors, but like through a Selecto hit or somebody that's an independent distributor, so that in between his releases with Universal, he could still keep the buzz alive on the streets. And, you know, back then it was unheard of that somebody could sign to a major label and still be allowed to put out their own music independently. But the way that Rifkin saw it was, well, it's kind of like mixtapes. Like we sanction mixtapes and we let guys put out mixtapes, so why not let Banner put out his music, make $8 a CD, and, you know, he's happy because he's getting money on the street. We're happy because we've got a superstar that has an even stronger buzz because he's doing, you know, much of the work himself. And so they signed that deal. It was unprecedented. It took us 9 months to get that paperwork right. But we eventually did it, and Banner was signed to Universal, and, you know, as a recording artist, and he was allowed to put out music through Selecto Hits, which is an independent distributor in Memphis. It was kind of the best of both worlds.
Wow. So you basically got David Banner a 7-figure deal.
Yes. And I forced them to take at least 2 albums because their track record, they didn't really have one with Southern rap. And my concern was that they'd put out 1 album, it may not do very well, and then there wouldn't be a second. So in the deal, I put in a minimum sales commitment of 250,000 units. And what that means is if he didn't sell at least 250,000 CDs, then he could leave and take his masters and not owe them anything. But if they sold above 250,000, which of course they did, if they sold above 250,000, then they would be forced to put out a second album within at least a year, within at least 12 months, which of course they did.
Now, earlier you said that David Banner, he basically wanted to share with the world his ideas and concepts. So ideas is the real capital of real wealth?
No, I would say that action is the capital of real wealth, because you can have the best ideas in the world, and if you don't bring them to market, you're not going to experience fruition from your ideas. An idea is an idea, right? When you put an idea on paper, it becomes a plan. But when you put action behind a plan, it becomes reality. And the reality is where the money is. The money is not in the idea. I mean, you need a good idea in order to bring something to fruition, but it takes more than an idea. We all know a ton of people that are sitting in their houses right now, scheming and planning and coming up with wonderful, wonderful ideas, but until you actually get up off your butt and put action behind that idea, you'll never know if it's real or not. You'll never know if it's going to be financially viable or whether it's going to be profitable. You just don't know.
Now, you just said that David Banner, he basically kept the rights to his masters. Can you explain to the listeners what exactly is masters and how can multi-platinum artists put themselves in the position of keeping their masters?
Absolutely. Banner actually did not get to keep his masters because they sold above the limit that we put, the bare minimum.
Wow.
But Cash Money did own their masters, and No Limit did own their masters. Masters are the ownership of the actual recording, the actual plate that they use to create the CD or the plate that they use to create vinyl. The master is the ownership of the right to release the music into the world. So the value in owning your masters as an artist is that you get to say when and where your music gets released. You have the right to, if you own your publishing as well. Publishing is the ownership of the actual music and the words on the master, right? So if you actually own your publishing and your masters, then you get the right to completely dictate and control where your music goes and where your music is used. So if you own your publishing and your masters, you're able to go to a film company and say, hey, I want to have my music in your next blockbuster film, and I have the right to sign off on that because I own, my music. And that's very attractive to anybody that wants to license your music because they don't have to go through, 20 layers of bureaucracy in order to get a yes or a no to license your music. You can do it directly. And that's the same for commercials. I'm going to kind of give you a funny example. There was an artist back in the 90s who called me up and he said, Wendy, I'm really upset because I just heard that my music is being used in pornography. And I don't believe in pornography, and I'm really upset. And, by the way, it was gay porn. It wasn't even just straight porn. It was, and he was very upset because he felt like he felt like it was hurting his brand for his music to be used in gay porn.
Wow.
And I called the label and I said, hey, you know, your biggest artist is really upset. And they said, well, when he sees the check, he won't be upset because they paid like 1.5 times what most people would pay for the music. And I explained to the lawyer at the label, the guy that I was talking to, I explained that, you know, the artist brand matters more to him than the money. And the label's response was, well, then too bad he doesn't control it, because to us, the money matters more than his brand. Like, he's just one artist, even though he's our biggest artist. He's one artist at this label, and we've got 40 others that we have to worry about. And the bottom line, and what I learned from that, was that if you control the masters and the publishing, then you can choose who uses your music and who doesn't, because you get the right to say no. Whereas, you know, in most scenarios, the label has the right to say no. So, or yes, and more often than not, they're in it for the money. They don't care where it's being used. They just want it to be used and make money from it. You know, there's so many artists out there who don't believe in drinking or smoking or drugs, and if the label has an opportunity to put the music in like a tequila commercial or a vodka commercial, they're going to go for it, and they don't care if the artist is against alcohol or pro-alcohol. They're just going to go ahead and do it because there's a financial reason to do that. And so many artists just get frustrated because they can't control where their music ends up. They'll get a check, they'll certainly get paid for it, but sometimes it's not about the money. Sometimes it's about what you believe in and what your views are as to where you want your music to end up.
So basically, that particular artist, he wasn't focusing on the long money that he can generate from, you know, the gay community. He basically was focusing on, I don't want this to hurt my reputation, which is my brand.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yep. I don't agree with him. I don't feel that it hurt his brand at all. But, you know, this was back in the 90s when artists were very sensitive about their brand, and it wasn't common yet for rappers to have their music used in a lot of commercial ways. So he felt like it made him look bad.
So when you own your masters and your publishing as an artist, basically your masters and publishing is like a marriage?
Your masters and your publishing are like real estate. If you own them, you can sell them, although I don't think you ever should, but you certainly could sell them for money, or you could rent them, and we call that licensing. So it's not really a marriage because they're two different things, but it's like real estate. It's where the value is in the investment.
So masters and publishing is like basically that's your own intellectual property.
Yeah.
Wow.
Publishing is intellectual property. It's the ownership of the words and the music. That's exactly what it is. Yes.
You are experiencing a life-changing, powerful interview, and you are hearing it first from Arthur Robinson Jr.'s PowerfulInterviews.com.
Now, Wendy, explain to the listeners. Now, I know a couple years ago, Google bought YouTube for $1.6 billion, so video is hot right now. Can you explain to the listeners the power of using video? And should entrepreneurs and business owners use video to expand their brand?
Yes. Actually, that's a great question for somebody like me because I fought video for a long time. You know, I'm kind of old school, so for me, the written word is so much more valuable. But I noticed with our audience that they didn't want to read. They wanted to watch. They wanted to watch, you know, first it was DVDs, They wanted to watch DVDs. They wanted to tune in to MTV and BET, and instead of listening to a song, they wanted to watch the song. And I watched video grow in importance, my whole career. And today, content is king. If an artist, not an artist, excuse me, if a fan of an artist has a choice between listening to a song or watching the artist, whether it's perform the song or it's the actual video for the song, or even if it's behind-the-scenes content about their lives, the fan would much rather see any of that than just listen to the music. It's really become a very visual society, and our smartphones have added to that. Our smartphones have created a wonderful viewing place for us. We can just sit down and hold a movie in our hand, or hold a TV show in our hand, or hold an artist video in our hand, or behind-the-scenes footage. Young Thug goes on tour, and he's got a cameraman with him at all times, so that it's like you're going on tour right with him. We've really become a society of voyeurs, right?
That's right.
We want to watch and know everything there is to know. People tune into reality shows because they want to know what's going on with the Kardashians. They can't live without their update, or Love and Hip Hop, or the Real Housewives series. People need to peer into other people's lives, and fame is so valued in our society, and we can have a conversation whether that's proper or whether it's misplaced, but we're a society that places extreme value on fame. I mean, gosh, our next president was built because he's from a reality show, like he's famous. It's almost like fame is the currency in today's marketplace, and fame is built from watching people, from video, from behind the scenes, from, seeing them on your favorite show, or watching, what's going on in their lives, whether it's on a broadcast or whether you have to go into their Snapchat to see it. It's kind of amazing.
Yes, it is. Actually, when you tell people exactly what you do, they're not even going to the yellow pages anymore. They're just going straight to the internet and see if your name pops up. And once you show social proof, they know you're the real deal. But if you have no social proof out there, they don't even want to even be affiliated with you.
You're right. What's amazing to me is I've been doing this for 25 years. In March, I will be entering into my 25th year. And I started a YouTube channel 2 months ago, or maybe 3 months ago now, to educate artists on the music industry. And I just put up little bursts of information. I do it every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and this is not a commercial. I do it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and then I go live on Wednesday night to answer any questions that anybody wants to tune in and ask me. I will answer about the music business.
Well, I've seen your YouTube channel. It's absolutely amazing.
Oh, you have? Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. I have gotten more press in the past 3 months from having this YouTube channel than I got in my entire 24 years. And I'm exaggerating a bit here. But the point is that video is seen as so important and so beneficial that when you Google me today, at least one of my videos will come up in the first page. And this is somebody who discovered Eminem and Cash Money and Master P and David Banner. I've worked with Young Buck. I've worked with Slick Rick. I've worked with all these amazing, amazing artists, Bootsy Webby. Like my resume is like a who's who of the music business. But when you Google me, at least one of my YouTube videos comes up. It's just beyond amazing to me. That's how valuable video has become in today's society, as that'll come up in my results over the fact that I discovered Eminem. It's just crazy to me.
Well, actually, what you just said earlier, content is king, and videos is basically delivery systems. Videos are delivery systems, blogs are delivery systems, emails are delivery systems. So when people can actually consume the content faster with these delivery systems, social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Google Plus, they are delivery systems.
It's all delivery systems, you're right. And it goes right to the consumer. Whereas a decade ago, we had to go through a middleman.
Or you had to deal with the gatekeeper.
The gatekeeper, exactly. And the middleman was the gatekeeper. You had to have a television deal in order to be delivered to the fans. Whereas now I can sit in my office and I can upload a video and have it on YouTube within 30 seconds after I record it. Maybe a minute if it's a long video. I try to keep them short because I know we have a very short attention span. But I can have something online within 30 minutes. So I can be sitting in my house and within 30 seconds, excuse me, I said 30 minutes, I meant 30 seconds. Within 30 seconds, you can be viewing me. You know, when else in the history of delivery have we had it that fast?
Wow. Wendy, let's talk about entrepreneurism. Now, I know the word entrepreneur comes from the word entreprendre, and that word was invented back in the 15th century in France. They're Latin words. The word entre means between, and the word prendre means to take. And a gentleman by the name of John Baptiste Tate, he was a Frenchman. He invented the word. 300 years later, that word still exists, which is entrepreneur. So basically, it means to take low productivity and increase it to high productivity. How do you increase your productivity with the skill sets that you mastered over the years?
By scaling, and I think that's how everybody is able to increase. Everybody who is a do-it-yourselfer, anybody who wants to work for themselves and be responsible for their own income and their own financial security. You either reach more people with what you sell, or you sell more things to the people you're already reaching. But either way, it's scale. When you start a business, it has to scale. And I look at artists as perfect examples of that. And not all artists are entrepreneurial, so I don't mean to say that all artists should run their own businesses, because it's a different skill set being an artist and being a business person. But I will say that every artist should have a business person on their team. You know, the best example I can give of that is like what Dame Dash was to Jay-Z. Here in Atlanta, we have a label called Think It's a Game, and the guy who runs it, his name is Fly. Fly is a very gifted businessman, and he's the one that brought Trinidad James and Rich Homie Quan and YFN Lucci to prominence. And it's his business acumen that has enabled those artists to succeed. And the reason I'm saying that is because when you're an artist and you make music, you have two choices. You can either reach more fans with your music, so you go from having 10 fans to 20 fans to 40 fans to 100 fans to 100, to 1,000 fans to 5,000 fans to 100,000 fans. You increase your reach. The only other way that you can make money as an artist is if you make more music and sell more songs to those same people. And that's why you see artists put out more than one song and call it a day. You know, they'll put out a song, they'll put out another song, they'll put out an album, they'll put out a second album, they'll put out, 5 more singles and then a third album. That's why you see artists doing that, because they're scaling. They're making sure that they can reach their fans with the music, or they're reaching new fans with the music. But either way, they're making money. And that's how all entrepreneurs make money.
Wendy, I wrote down some powerful words, 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. So you can rate them in your own influential way. Are you ready?
Okay. Yeah, you said 5 is the highest?
And 1 is the lowest.
Got it. Okay. Hit me.
Accountability.
Oh, that's a 5. You know, I'm in the music industry where there's very little accountability. There's very little clarity. You know, people hide things because it's a draconian and unsafe industry.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, accountability is a 5. It's very important. Transparency is also a 5 for the same reason. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Perseverance.
5.
Leverage.
5. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But for me and for artists, leverage is very important, so 5.
Health.
5.
Wealth.
3.
Building great relationships.
5.
Family.
5.
Love.
5.
Financial capital.
5. I would also put credit with that. 5. You got to build your credit. You got to be able to use money to make money. So 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Maybe 6.
Intellectual property.
5.
Entertainment attorney.
5.
All right, that was good. That was real good.
Wow, we had no 1. Let's say laziness. Say laziness so I can say 1.
Wendy, can you explain to the listeners exactly where they can find you?
Absolutely. My main website that explains who I am and that links to my other, I have like 10 websites now. If you go to wendyday.com, and that's WENDYDAY.com, that's kind of the central clearinghouse for everything Wendy Day. And my blog is linked there. All my social media is linked there. I have a new audio book that's dropping. The link for that is there. The link for my digital book is there. The link for my YouTube, my podcast, it's all there.
Wendy, can you explain to the listeners, what do you like to do for fun?
Wow, I'm a workaholic, so for me, work is fun. But there are times, I have to admit, there are times where I just need downtime, and when I start to feel stressed out or I start to feel the pressure, I like to watch old movies. Turner Classic Movies is probably one of my favorite cable channels to watch on television. I just really like movies from the 1930s and 40s, some even into the 50s. It was just a very glamorous time. They're very happy movies. They almost always have a positive ending. So I just really like to kind of get lost in old movies. I read a lot. I read about a book a week. So you can find me reading. I do that for pleasure and for business, though, because I read nonfiction mostly. In fact, almost all is nonfiction. And books have really helped me build my business bigger and stronger. I like art. I really like art. I'm somebody who enjoys going to museums. I like making art. I like painting. I like sculpture. I like ceramics. I really enjoy glass art, not glass blowing, but kiln-formed art. I really enjoy that. I'm a foodie. You can't see me because it's a podcast, but I'm probably 50 to 60 pounds overweight. And I'm healthy, but I'm definitely a big girl because I love to eat. I love food. I love restaurants. You know, I'm a food connoisseur. I just really enjoy something that tastes phenomenal. And then the last thing that I do is I love to travel. You know, I've been to Africa 3 times. I've been to Europe probably